My greatest fear going into the new Superman movie was that it was going to have a lot of scenes like this.
Fuck you! No, fuck you! Fuck you! Fuck you! Fuck you! Go to hell, man! But you don't have the right to push it! Fuck you right now! No, I just said it was nice!
Push down on it!
What?
Push it down!
I am pushing down on it!
Push the button!
I'm just trying to... God damn it, and we also seem to have a lot in common.
Like what?
Fuck you!
Fuck you!
Those are all from movies that Superman's director, James Gunn, has directed in the past. You see, Gunn does this thing where he approaches his characters' lines with a great deal of spontaneity. The delivery isn't always pitch perfect, characters might occasionally stutter or repeat words, they might interrupt each other, naturally sparking an argument. Conversations retain a certain naturally imperfect flow that's very reminiscent of real life. That's nice, that's, good job. But then he goes a little overboard with it, to the point where it almost seems like he's using yelling as a substitute for good, engaging dialogue. Look at them yell at each other, the pathos, the realism, isn't that great dialogue? And past a certain point, no, it just becomes yelling. Yelling, repeating the same words, or stretching out puns for just a little too long, it becomes juvenile. So does the new Superman movie have this problem? Did my greatest fear about Superman 2025 come true? Well, yeah, it did. But here's the plot twist, you half-bored, half-amused viewer, you. It's still a good movie regardless. It's a tough film to appraise because, as a movie, it's alright, it's enjoyable enough. If you're the most casual, Phil-going dum-dum that ever walked into a theater, you'll get some ha-has out of it. But as a Superman movie, this is where the film both shines and might backfire for hardcore fans. Because on the one hand, it's everything we've been waiting for and asking for from DC back when Zack Snyder was at the helm that they refused to give us. An uncompromisingly hopeful Superman that stays true to his comic book self, never mopes, never gives up, regards life as sacred, and always finds some way to save the day. James Gunn actively pushes back against the infamous neck snap from Man of Steel that made virgin super nerds around the world spill their tea in indignation. Superman killing a living thing that used to breathe and now it doesn't? It shall never eat again, it shall never take another shit again? By the Queen's tits, I shan't stand for this. Well, not to worry, Gunn didn't stand for it either, cause Supes goes out of his way to try and save every single life form that enters his field of awareness. He saves a fucking squirrel. I'm not kidding. He pauses a fight against this huge threat to go and save a goddamn squirrel. That's some Kryptonian level OCD. And overall, they do a good job of informing Superman's character and why he grows to have such respect for the sanctity of life and how it's a mark of pride for him. And then they pull that rug from right under him quite nicely. What the fuck was I saying before this? Ah yes, the fans. So for casuals it's okay, for nerds it's pretty damn cool, and for the hardcore Superman fans that have been starved for a more authentic representation for Mr. Blue on the big screen, it might just be the best thing since foot massages. But by that same token, it might also backfire viciously if those fans don't gel well with Gunn's style. The screaming, the intentionally silly dialogue, the middle finger Green Lantern projections. This is the complete opposite of the Snyderverse. As those movies were stoic and somber, and the costumes sleek and underwear free, and it was edgy and dark, and everyone was having a serious debate on whether or not Superman should be here, whereas this movie's silly, lighthearted, jovial, poppy, obnoxious, Superman's wearing a big red diaper, and everyone's having a serious debate on whether Superman should be here. Perhaps we're not so different after all. Correction, in keeping with the stoic versus stupid comparison, it's more accurate to say that the Snyderverse debated whether Superman should have a presence here, while the Gunniverse debated whether Superman should have a harem here. Don't ask, just watch the movie. But the point of maximum James Gunniness happens when the Justice Gang shows up. Yes, that's their real name. Yes, that becomes a running gag. A bunch of meta-human side characters that you may or may not have seen in the trailers. And I swear, as soon as they entered the frame, I felt like I was in a Guardians movie watching Taserface assembling his own team of sitcom rejects to take over the film set. To me, that's where the fabric of the multiverse started to crack, and whatever Superman DNA this movie had threatened to get flushed down the toilet, replaced with Guardians and Suicide double helixes, or single helix more like. That's not to say it's not still enjoyable, it's just, stupid. Guy was alright, he fills the role of the vain, assholey supporting character nicely. As for the other two, Hawkgirl was a disappointment and Mr. Terrific was a pleasant surprise. The latter is a pretty well put together character that plays a fairly significant part in the story, and has his own sense of style, while the former just exists. I really loved Hawkgirl in the Justice League cartoon, but here she's basically movie extra number 394. She doesn't say much, doesn't do much, what even are her powers, other than flight? In the show, she had that magic mace thing at least. Here is just a mace. Morningstar, whatever. This chick was similarly useless. She exists so Lois can exposit 2 lines to someone. No shame in that, I suppose, but why'd she get her own promo material and title card and shit? I will say the supporting cast overall is well used. Jimmy Olsen comes to mind, who's in this paradoxical position of being a beloved character in the comics, yet every time he appears in any kind of adaptation, he's a nothing character. Well, in this movie, he actually does something. He has a role, a part to play. And I like how they managed to work in some actual journalism into the movie in general. It plays a big part in resolving the major conflict, which it kinda tried to do in BVS, but it was just so fucking boring and practically irrelevant in Man of Steel. But here, it's actually fun, so points for that. I was a little worried when Clark's parents first appeared into the frame, because it seemed like Gunn was gonna dumb them down too much and turn them into some kind of meme, but to my relief, Pa Kent actually gets the most emotional scene in the whole movie. If you're jaded, like me, then that's the only part of the movie where the old chicken skin will start to show. Also, I'd like to stress that despite my ramblings about the movie's rambly dialogue, I am not referring to the interview scene between Clark and Lois. Even though that conversation technically devolves into the same verbal mess, there, it's earned. This is a touchy topic that pushes Superman's buttons and hammers away at his weaknesses, and so it understandably explodes in a way that not only is very organically built up to, but that also reveals the essence of this character.
Representative of
I
the
wasn't
United States
representing
will cause
anybody except for me
problems around the world.
and doing good.
Superman is not a sophisticated character. He is not proud, he's not high and mighty, he is not nuanced, he doesn't get bogged down in details, and his morality is simple. Arguably even simpler than Captain America's. All he does is save people. That's it. And he, along with this film, couldn't have arrived at a better time, honestly, because today's politics have nothing to do with saving lives and everything to do with saving face. But we'll get to the obvious political metaphor of the film a little later. This segues nicely into David Cornstarch's performance as Superman. A man as insultingly handsome as his immediate predecessor, to the point where it might take a few seconds to tell the two apart. The cool thing is, even though they both increase the humidity level enough to turn a nun's convent into a steam room, the overall vibe and the way each actor carries himself makes them into wildly different Supermen. If you take Henry Cavill and plop him into this film and change nothing else, suddenly the film doesn't work anymore. Because Cavill's so chiseled and English and proper that when you first lay eyes on him, you're like, wow, I didn't know nature could do that. Which is why he was chosen for Man of Steel and that whole incarnation of the character. He was exactly that kind of stoic, tear-inducingly perfect statue of a man that Zack was looking for. He wanted to flesh out that aspect of the character, which is a real part of him. We shouldn't pretend it isn't. There's a majesty to Superman that Zack wanted to focus on. But David Cornhub, on the other hand, despite being just as hot, he's so homey. When you see Cavill, you're like, oh, Mr. Cavill, what an honor. I'm not worthy. Can I touch? Just a cap of feel.
I'm coming across like such a creeper. Poor Henry. But I talk to other people like, oh, Henry's beautiful and he's such a nice guy and this, but then you say it in front of him and then you feel like really creepy.
Whereas when you meet high fructose corn syrup and as soon as he says 2 words, you're like, wow, you are such a bro. Like, I totally forgot you're this big Superman Hollywood larger-than-life icon, and I just feel like I'm talking to one of my homies, which is exactly what this film needs. It doesn't work otherwise. This movie is a direct refutation of the Kill Bill 2 monologue.
Superman didn't become Superman. Superman was born Superman. His alter ego is Clark Kent. Clark Kent is how Superman views us. And what are the characteristics of Clark Kent? He's weak. He's unsure of himself. He's a coward. Clark Kent is Superman's critique on the whole human race.
Superman does not belittle humanity. He is humanity. He is, ironically, the most human superhero, despite his powers and his alien origin. He flat out says this in the film. Where did he learn to look down on humanity? On a farm? He was raised by fucking farmers. He's a simple, down-to-earth guy with very simplistic morals and zero sophistication. In fact, that's what gets him in trouble multiple times throughout the film. They couldn't have spelled out more clearly that Superman is just a regular-ass dude that just so happened to get the powers of a god. That's what makes the character. character. If you really think about it, it's the only way the character works, because if Superman relates any less to humanity, he stops caring as much about humanity and becomes the tyrant that everyone fears he will one day become. And Cornfield Sweatface was definitely the right choice to portray this. He's nice to a fault, well-intended to a fault, naive, has a simple but heartwarming demeanor. He channels the #1 core trait of Superman, which is an innate, unquenchable desire to do good. Unbiased, unconditional good. As for his main adversary, I didn't exactly jubilate like a schoolgirl when I found out they cast Beast as Lex Luthor. I keep waiting for someone to enact the animated series Luthor, the smug, confident, broad-shouldered, deep-voiced, intimidating businessman. When will someone adapt that motherfucker to the big screen? I'm sick of puny, neurotic Luthors and old men Luthors. Fuck. But I will say, after seeing the movie, I understand why Nicholas Hoult was chosen to play Luthor. Because much like the High Evolutionary and many other James Gunn villains before him, this Lex is ultimately a man-child. He is the most gifted, most wealthy man-child ever put on screen. There isn't a whole lot of characterization for him or many of the other characters, but what is there is just barely enough and is revealed nicely as he gradually devolves from a hyper-competent, confident entrepreneur villain with a plan into the insecure, vain, narcissistic little bitch that he is underneath. In Gunn's mind, those personality flaws are the only thing that could motivate someone to do the horrible things he does in this film, and I'm not sure he's wrong. So Hoult does the best with what he has and what he was given, and it works for the film, but it probably won't leave you feeling, wow, this is the definitive Lex Luthor, or the definitive Superman for that matter. We live in an era where you shouldn't have such expectations. That doesn't mean you shouldn't have expectations, or that the quality of these films is somehow lesser than what came before. No. It's the fact that films are becoming more granular in what they want to adapt and convey. A specific Joker, a specific Batman, specific Superman. And that is partly because we've now had plenty incarnations of these characters. It becomes less and less feasible to create a version that's both extremely general or all-encompassing and also extremely original. People made the same mistake with the Batman. A lot of people came out of that film saying that it was good, but I don't know, it's not the definitive Batman. Well, it's not trying to be, bitch. They were like, his suit looks funny, he's not smart enough, somehow, even though he's smarter than all past versions combined. Catwoman has a weird suit, why is he still a rookie? And I'm like, you're blaming the movie for having a style and a premise. This is year 2 Batman. It was never trying to be the mainstream Batman experience. It's a version of Batman, and a damn good one, honestly. In that same way, this is a version of Superman, and it too is a pretty damn good one. God damn it, this would have been a great way to end the video, but I got more to say. The characters exposit randomly at times. I don't know if it's just me because I've become painfully aware of these things, or if it's as a parent to Jenny, the 15-year-old TikToker who won't run out of fucking snacks to open during the movie. I hate opening nights. But especially in the first part of the proceedings, it sometimes felt like people were just giving exposition completely unprompted, the way a Jehovah's Witness stops you on the street to let you know their sexual orientation is Jesus. Superman needs treatment. By the way, did you know that Superman's recording of his parents soothes him, and that he comes from a planet called Krypton that is now destroyed, and he is the last of his kind, and he likes to eat yellow sun for breakfast? Yes, I am a robot like you, so I had all that in my databanks. Also, I'm pretty sure even kids in Uganda know all that. It did take a while for me to get invested in the proceedings. There's a bit of a TV show vibe at the very beginning. I don't know how else to describe it. Like it's a middle episode of a show instead of a theatrical film, which ultimately works to the film's advantage, because you can cut right into the meat of it instead of doing an origin story and all the things that slow the plot down. But it does lack that cinematic flair that some of the Snyder films had. Once the plot gets going, however, there's both a good story and good cinematography happening, so it's all good. One thing I found bizarre is just how much material seemed to have been cut out of the final product. There's this one character that mentions she sacrificed her humanity to help defeat Superman, and that's never really expanded on. And I thought, cool, you don't really need more than that. It's fairly obvious why she did that and in what way. It's explained visually, I guess. But then there's this bit where Superman tells her there's still hope for her, she doesn't need to do this, as if they talked before and shared a few scenes beforehand that got cut out. Almost feels like this was supposed to be an entire subplot that got left on the cutting room floor. Maybe I'm wrong, but it sure felt like there was supposed to be more film. But by far, the single dumbest thing about this movie is Lex Luthor using voice commands to beat Superman. Now, I'm gonna preface this by saying that as a plot device, it works. Sure, leads to a nice little payoff, gives a sense of accomplishment when that story beat is resolved. But logically, it's the dumbest thing I've seen all year. You see, Lex has a superpowered goon that he uses to fight Superman, but the gimmick is that the goon doesn't fight Supes freely, he obeys Luthor's voice commands. Luthor will yell 4B, 42C, 1A, like he's a chess player playing Street Fighter, and the goon will obey his commands and beat Superman because Lex knows Superman better than anyone. There's only one problem. Superman fights at blindingly fast speeds. You're telling me that waiting for bald Elon Musk to peek through a tiny camera and see what's up, and then yell special moves into a mic that you then execute is not just fast enough, but better than just letting the goon fight. This is so whack. Also, this guy's smarts and the level of tech he has access to is such that he can build teleporters, pocket dimensions, and mini black holes. And you're telling me he couldn't figure out some kind of direct nervous system interface and have him control the goon directly through his brain, instead of yelling back, forward, low punch, no, high punch, down, back, 4, into command grab. No, I said down, back 4. It's just so silly. Unlimited technology and infinite money at his disposal, and my guy's like, out of my way, this is my fight. Let me solo her. On the flip side, the plot, the actual story, is pretty clean and pretty well written. It's lean, and what twists are there are very effective and tie everything together with a nice little ribbon. Wait a minute, how can Superman lose without kryptonite? Why is he of an injury? Oh, that's why. Wait, how do they infiltrate the Fortress of Solitude? Oh, also because of that. Okay, that makes total sense. Shit, I haven't talked about Lois. Lois is fine. That's an adequate amount of Lois. They chose a good actress, she's good at being the sharp, nosy reporter, and she has good chemistry with David Horny Sweat, whereas Amy Adams' Lois was a little too much of a mature, distinguished, laid-back lady to pull that energy off. There is a kind of, what am I doing with my life, dating this alien kind of thought trail being explored a little bit, and she's also helpful without being nosy or shoehorned in, which is the most important thing to get right about her, and it's something that both Man of Steel and BVS kind of fumbled. Only other thing to say is, I know they try to make her a bit of a tomboy, but those pants are overkill. Let the woman wear something that actually fits her body. Two other concerns people had going into this film were that A, it might be juggling one too many characters for a first film in a franchise, but I think that was, for the most part, well handled, aside from the fact that Hawkgirl could have easily been replaced with henchman number 5 and nothing would have changed. And concern B was politics. Articles abound implying that this film is pretty political, and people were like, ew, I don't want politics in my Superman film. It also doesn't help that Gunn is pretty high-strung politically. His Peacemaker series sure gave me a political headache, so much so that I had trouble reconciling with that entire show because of it for a while. But Peacemaker is an inherently political character. Now, one could argue that Superman is too, but as pointed out earlier, Supes is the least political character ever, or has the most simplistic political philosophy ever, if you will. Save lives. That's it. So in that sense, it is the least political film ever. On the other hand, the film also heavily parodies, or rather condemns, the Russian-Ukrainian war, Putin's actions, and the West's inaction, right down to parodying Putin as this disgusting, warmongering, witless, scrotum-faced oaf who claims to want to liberate the people of a nation by killing them, which is not even a parody, frankly. And Gunn does this beautiful thing where he takes all this rancid geopolitical gunk, the morally questionable state of the world today, and smashes it against Superman's refreshingly simple, purifying morality. Just save lives. Stop the war, stop the killing, save lives. So yes, there is a political stance in this film. If that offends you, that is your prerogative. Not all political content in movies is yucky, however, and more importantly, you don't have to agree with the film to recognize that if Superman were a real person living in the world today, his political stance would, beyond any doubt, be the same as the movies. And that is an amazing thing for a film to capture. I don't grade movies, but 8.5 out of 10, go see it.
Shut up, you bloody fools!
Now see, in the trailer, there's this cool shot during the interview scene where Clark kind of leans in and spontaneously enters his Superman persona very playfully. But in the final cut of the film, they changed the angle to this. This faraway bullshit. Why? It's not nearly as expressive. Why did they change that? Why?